Hey yo, look at me, I've just been created in Moho. Leave a like and subscribe. Come on guys, let's support this channel.
Alright, hi guys, how you doing? Welcome back to our continuation of our mastering of the Moho manual tutorial book. So on today's lesson, I was creating the character. We already have a character that we created in lesson 1. And in lesson 2, I used all the things that we learned to then add a few points. I added the ears, I added the mouth, and I added a few extra bits to make it look like a face, because I think in lesson 1 we didn't really put in the time to create a proper face, but now you can actually see it's a face, and then a head rather, and then I have with we also added the background that we had in lesson 3, and then so yeah, in this lesson we'll be creating ways to animate. There are 3 ways to animate. Animation 1 is using the layer way to animate them. So you use the layers, you manipulate the layer by either dragging it or enlarging it or rotating it. And then the second one is bone rigging, where we've already rigged our bone and now we just animate using the manipulate bone tool. And I also like to use the transform bone tool to animate. So here, as you can see, I am using the layer. I've gone to the landscape layer, and this is a way to create maybe a zoom in effect or a panning effect, and you can easily create that by just dragging the picture in the timeline. So you go to frame 72, like in the tutorial there's a file where you can create your animation. They give you a source file, and then from there you can just follow the instructions. But I like to use my own setup, and then you can actually learn from it and then maybe apply the same things to the tutorial, but it's still really based on the tutorial that and the instructions that we're given, but I just simplify it for everyone to understand. And hopefully I am making sense, because if I wasn't, this would be not helpful at all. So yeah, in the timeline you can drag across into the timeline, go to frame 72 and use the layer thing and the layer tool, and then you can drag it across. And then again we can use, maybe we want to pan it or rotate it, and then when you want to pan it you can just move it across, and the tip when panning across or dragging your object or layer across, you can press shift, and then when you press shift your layer does not move and it doesn't go squonky or lower than before, and then you've got a slanted movement or anything of that sort. So it's better to use shift, and when you use shift it's accurate and you can keep it level or straight in straight lines. You can move it in straight lines, it won't go up and down. And that's a very useful tip, because I used to have little squonky movements, but now you can move your object right across the screen anywhere, up, down, and it'll be straight when you press shift. And then if you want to rotate, it's the same thing. You can rotate, you go to the corner of your object and you drag it round whichever direction you want to rotate it. And then also another trick is using all 3 elements of it, the drag, the panning, and the zoom in, and then you can create pretty cool camera effects. And also the camera, there's camera tools, but I think when we move into the camera tools we'll do that in a more advanced lesson. But for now we just want to animate in a layer, how to animate using layers. And then with that complete, so a recap on how you animate in your layers, you can use the panning where you click on the object and drag it across, press shift, and then you can also go to the corner of the object and drag it in a zoom in motion or shrinking. So enlarging it and zooming creates an illusion that it's zooming in. And then when also rotating, it's the same effect. And in a later lesson I'll explain how to use the cameras instead of moving the object, but it does help to create interesting effects and illusions when animating like that. And that is a way to animate. And then the next way we'll be animating is using the bones. And we've rigged our character already, as we did in the last lesson. If you haven't, please go check out those videos and then come back to this one. It's a continuation, and we will be continuing from lesson 1 to maybe lesson 20. We'll be going through the Moho tutorial book, and I think no one really uses that book. They just go into Animate. So I think if we use that book and see how much we can learn, and it could be really interesting. And then moving on, I was animating, this is just me where I was animating a little head bob. And the other tricks and tips to use, for the face one, I went to select bones, and then when you go in that tab, you can actually insert a squash and stretch, but I'll also explain that in a more advanced lesson, because that's a trick for a more advanced animation tutorial. So here I've got a little squash and stretch. It also manipulates the art pieces or the art objects to squash and stretch, and then it creates really cool effects when animating. So I'm not really going to talk over what's happening here, but I'm basically just animating through the object, trying to get something really nice. And this will be your bone animation. So yeah, you can just play around with it. You play around with your timing. Those are key things that you actually learn in animation theory, how to do your timing, your spacing, and that's basically what I'm playing around here with in the timeline until I get something that I really like. You can experiment through it. You can have already set your timing and spacing, but just since I'm freestyling and I don't really have a set plan on what I'm trying to achieve, it's just pretty much freestyle and experiment to see what works. And also, since we don't have the character turning yet, it's just one direction. I have very limited ways to work with it, but I feel this is a way just to work with a little squash and stretch. It creates an illusion like maybe the head is turning, but actually it's not turning, it's just going up, down. And with that, you can create a little zoom out, and it's squash and stretch like my filter. And there you have a little animation. And that will be bone rigging. That's why we rig a character, so that once we rig it, we can manipulate the bones and create motion. And that's basically as simple as it is. So recap now. Again, I always like to have a recap. We have done layer animation with landscapes. I usually use layers for landscapes or moving objects such as cars, bicycles, or things like boxes, houses, objects that need movement and don't need to be manipulated by a bone. Using layers is very useful and quicker. And you can also play with timings, and it can be anything. It really can be anything. It can be little balls. It can be a whole lot of things. And if you look in the tutorials, they provide source files that you can actually edit with. And then maybe later I will start adding the source files for what we're working on here in my Gumroad store. And you can then just take those and work in them and manipulate whatever you want. But we'll see where we will reach, and hopefully it will be fun and it will be a really great experience. And then the next animation, the third one, so we've done layer animation, bone animation. Now we're going into point animation. And point animation is useful when you're in the timeline and you want to do secondary animations like hair flopping, the clothes flopping around when you move, or extra movements. So in here, since we've got our character, I'm just going to use it point animation to animate the mouths, and I'm going to do the eyebrows also, and the eyes, and maybe the hair later on. So yeah, you can create your word movements lip movements when you're creating the words or expressions. And for this one, he's just going, oh! And then, so in that oh, as he goes down, I want to close the mouth, move the eyebrows, create an expression that can actually relate and create that, sell that surprise, like, oh, I've just been created, you know. And you can experiment in many ways how you want your animation to go. It's really fun. It's one of the best experiences when you can just create something and it starts coming to life. And so we've basically done this in 4 lessons of less than 20 minutes each. And we've already got a face that is coming to life, and it's really fascinating to see. I find it really awesome. And the ideas are limitless. You can really create anything that you want. And that's why I love Moho. It is such a powerful tool that you can create so many things, and it's very easy to use. And so yeah, if you want Moho, you can actually go to Lost Marbles. They haven't paid me to promo this, but hopefully someday they will. But yeah, you can go to lostmarbles.com. I'll leave the link in the descriptions, and you can actually go purchase it. It's less than $500 for the full version, and there's no subscriptions for it as compared to Toon Boom Harmony. Although Toon Boom has many advantages, but that's for another lesson. I'm just getting carried away. But back to the animation. So we have animated using the layers, and I'm going back in to just animate something using the layers to see if I can get a movement that works with the landscape and my character, but I don't think I'll have anything that works now. But yeah, you can play with that too and create little movements and sell the emotion also. And it can hit the audience with a bang, like a quick zoom in, zoom out, and it can create it can sell the desired effect. And yeah, you can experiment in those. You can do many things, however you like it. So I think that wraps it up. What we're gonna be doing, what we've done in this lesson. We've animated 3 points, and yeah. So further on, I experiment in creating the illusion of selling an expression. You learn these in your theories. If you get the Animation Survivor kit, they teach us how to create these extra elements that could make your animation really come alive, show some weight, show some speed. And here I'm just playing around with the hair to create a little wind, a dragging motion, like, oh, the hair is lighter than the head and it gets left behind and then it moves forward as it moves. And yeah, it's really just the logics, the basics, and how movement logic as you see it. And then, so since in animation we have a short space of time to sell it, so we can exaggerate some poses, and you'll find I'll stretch the hair so you can actually catch it, that oh, the hair has moved right across and it's come back, and it happens so fast that it's actually really amazing. And the results, I really like the results that came out for this one. And then also you can experiment again with the timing and the frame, the timing and the spacing, and direction, also direction change. It's just gravity, how gravity works, how everything works, and you just apply those things into animating, and you'll find your animation is just simply changes from 0 to 10, and it's quite amazing. And I hope you enjoy when you're creating your own, as we learn together in this one. But yeah, that is complete the lesson for today. 3 ways to animate in Moho, and that is point animation, layer animation, and bone animation. I hope you learned something in this lesson and hope to catch you in the next one. So don't forget to subscribe, to like, support this channel, and keep animating. Moho.